So Mythic Quest, oh my goodness, like I'm sure you get it all the time, but like it just, yeah, it's so accurate. It's so freaking accurate. But yeah, what was it like to get involved with this project then?
It was another very surreal experience. I just got a cold call from my agent that Rob McElhenney wanted to meet with me about his new show, and I had never met Rob. I was just like, okay. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Sure. But yeah, I was a fan of Always Sunny, but I was shocked. And especially being a kid that grew up with games, it felt like we had made it in some way. Like there was a sitcom, a workplace sitcom being made about a game studio. Like we made it, baby. It's real, you know? And yeah, I'm so grateful to be a part of it because I would have such horrible FOMO if I wasn't. But yeah, I started as a writer. And then I auditioned for Rachel and I got cast as Rachel. And now I've been directing for the show as well now since season 3. And it's just been, it's been such an amazing experience.
So how much of like games development had you been like sort of exposed to before you started on the show? Like in terms of like, you know, the sort of QA and producing and that kind of thing.
Right. Not a ton, honestly. I mean, I'd met development teams through my work on in voiceover. I worked at Valve for a little bit as a writer, but I wasn't working on a game. I was actually working on like the Team Fortress 2 ancillary content team. So I had some exposure to development through that, but I was really there a lot for like my knowledge of games in general and the industry. And obviously, you know, I have dev friends and my brother's a developer and stuff like that. So I had a lot of knowledge in that regard. But yeah, I was brought on to definitely bring some like nerd authenticity to the proceedings.
Hey, thank you so much for checking into this episode of The Games That Made Me. We're a small channel working hard to grow, and we love your support. If you could hit that subscribe button and give us a like, we'd really appreciate it. The more support we have from you all, the bigger the guests we can get on the show. Now, back to the episode. So how did you, how was it sort of bringing Rachel to life?
It was really interesting because it was my first, I had done some on camera before. I don't really count Hey Ash because we did it in our like living room. But you know, they were mostly like smaller projects. So this is my first, it was like a really big leap for me. And it was pretty nerve-wracking at first. I was used to being by myself in a booth. So like having to hit marks and worry about where cameras were and, you know, memorize my lines and all that kind of stuff. And worrying about light or, you know, making days and stuff was not something I was completely used to. And so there was a bit of a learning curve for me in that regard. But then, you know, slowly over time, I became more comfortable. And I think we sort of figured out, you know, more and more like who Rachel was and where she fit in this larger company of characters. Because that's the interesting thing with sitcoms in particular is that, you know, you have these characters in mind, then you cast people, and that changes things. So, you know, Dana, who Imani Hakim plays, as written originally, was more of this like doe-eyed, oblivious, like, you know, and Rachel was like obsessed with her and like staring at her, and Dana was just like, la la la. And Imani is too smart for that, truly, honestly. Like she just reads as like so confident and self-assured and like aware that but we had great chemistry and she was really funny, and so there was this interesting thing where like on the day what was sort of more of a comedic one-sided romance became a more genuine, sweet, like actual like connection between these two characters, and that sort of affected our characters. And so then it became an interesting thing of like, okay, so these characters are now a little bit different than we originally thought. You know, where do they fit and how can we make them funny? And what we ended up sort of landing on with Rachel, which I love and I think has worked, is that she's a bit of an idiot savant. So she's kind of a dummy. And she's well-meaning, but she's sort of very short-sighted and very suggestible and very gullible. And I think that ended up matching well with our ensemble, I think, having like a sweet dummy. Because all of our characters are, for the most part, really smart and varying levels of narcissist and Machiavellian and all that kind of stuff. And so having someone in the cast, I think, that can just be very easily manipulated and put her foot in her mouth a lot. It was very fun.
And like with Rob as well, like what was that collaboration like?
I learned so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much through this whole process. We actually put it in the show at some point. I think he says it as Ian, but he has this sort of mentality, which I've really adopted as going into showrunning myself, which is like, you just have to make decisions quickly. Like, you can't hem and haw, you can't fret. You have to trust your gut in the moment and make a choice. And if you find out later that choice was the wrong choice, you go, great, we're making this choice instead. And you just move on. And it's the pace of TV and the pace of development that, like, if you get too bound up in what's going to be the effect of this, or this choice, you're never going to be able to move forward. And so a big part of writing is rewriting. It's rebreaking. It's being like, okay, this works, and then sitting on it for a day and then being like, no, it doesn't. All right, we have to revamp this and do this and whatever. Or like making a choice initially and then seeing it on set and being like, that doesn't work. Okay, let's switch this out and whatever. Like, it really is just about like trusting your gut, but then also having the humility to be, you know, when you are presented with a better idea or something comes up on the day, an actor has an awesome choice or brings up a good point, where you're like, ooh, you're right, that doesn't actually make sense, that you can pivot. So that was a big thing that I learned from him, is like having the confidence to make a choice and then having the humility to change it.
And then being able to direct the final episode.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what was that like?
I was so, I felt so happy that they trusted me with it, honestly. I directed a episode previously that season, episode 5. And yeah, originally, I think David Hornsby was going to try to direct the finale, but he was like, he's also an executive producer and he's like the main storyline in the previous episode. And he was like, I cannot do this. I have too much stuff on my plate. And so, yeah, Rob and Megan approached me about directing, and I was very touched that they would trust me. And I won't spoil anything for anyone that hasn't seen the final episode, but there's a very big moment in it. And so, yeah, getting to work with Rob and Charlotte, who plays Poppy, on that, and really finding it and trying to like make sure that we hit all the right notes was really fun. It was very collaborative. You know, there were like moments of like really trying to figure out how to thread the needle on a moment that people were going to have reactions to. So yeah, it was a really cool challenge as a director, because I really as an actor, I like working with actors. I like seeing what actors bring. And so yeah, finding especially that ending scene with them was really, really gratifying.
And if Rachel had to create a game, if Rachel was suddenly the leader, what kind of game do you think she'd make? I
think she thinks that she would make Papers, Please, but she does not have the intellectual capacity to make Papers, Please, nor the talent. I think she would be actually really good at making a highly addictive game, which is not something that she wants to believe about herself, and morally would never want to make a highly addictive game. But I actually think that she would be really good at making like a Candy Crush kind of game. Like, her aspiration is to make Cart Life, but she does not have the capacity. So, yeah, I think, you know, she would probably make a really great Cake Mania.
Love that. But yeah, I think that's like something about the sense of humor as well that's written into the show, is that thing of like just being so confident in something that's wrong.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Remember the episode with what was it, when they were worried about like DEI or something, and it's like that thing about comedy, about turning it on its head, where like, I don't know, what is your process about like taking something that you know is really wrong, but then having a character like believe it so much that it makes sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah. I think it's the awareness of like that the joke is on the character. So I think we're pretty good about that, of being like, you know, there's an episode in season 4 where Rachel is defending child labor, and we very much make it the joke is on Rachel. But yeah, we really walked her there, I think, by being like, okay, obviously this person wants to believe that she's a good person and would not defend child labor. So it is this thing of like, what is the logic that she would believe, right? And so we have a game in Mythic Quest that's called Playpen, that's basically like our version of Roblox in the show. And so for her, she's like, oh, we have all these young developers that want to be able to make their games and make money off of their games, and isn't that beautiful? And, you know, And that leads her, that belief in being like, yeah, kids should be able to make games, then makes her, leads her to defending child labor in front of Congress. So there's like, there's a through line you can follow. She goes so hard and digs herself so deep that you're like, well, no intelligent person would do that. But, you can see how she got there. So yeah, it really is like, I think like grounding it in the character and being like, okay, what would this character believe? How do we walk her to this place where it feels authentic that she would be doing this? And then making sure that the joke isn't that like, isn't it funny that there's child labor sometimes? And more, isn't it funny that this person that considers herself highly moral is defending this terrible thing?
Would you rather work for someone like Ian, or would you rather work for Poppy?
Oh God. I choose death. I think, honestly, I might rather work for Ian because I think he'd be nicer at least. I think they're both equally bad bosses, but Poppy is so mean. I think I would rather have... oh, wait, no. Hold on, let me think. Poppy, actually, because Poppy does everything herself. She doesn't trust anyone else to do her job, or to do any job. So she's mean and she calls you an idiot, but then she just does the job herself. So you could actually probably work for her and never have to work.
Just coast.
Yeah. Versus Ian would make you come in at like 2 a.m. and like throw everything out and start again. So actually, yeah, I changed my mind, Poppy.
Yeah. And then if Mythic Quest was a real game today, do you think it would be successful?
I think it would have had to come out in a different time. Because it is very much, it's very much inspired by World of Warcraft. I mean, maybe if WoW came out now, it would be successful. Do you think it would?
Yeah, I think it would. Because even if it was, say, like bad, even if it was like cringy or like, it could still create content that people would love about it. It's like the Skyrim glitches, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like there's just such a joy in something that is made medieval.
Right.
But is really kind of broken.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, also we say in the show that it's like one of the most popular games of all time. So I'm sure it'd be awesome if it existed.
Yeah. What about Ian though? Do you think that he would be successful?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think he's in the shit.
Oh my God, of course. I actually had a creative director friend of mine text me after watching the first episode because there's a moment where Ian comes in for a group meeting, like a company meeting, gets really mad and throws a bunch of stuff off of a desk. And he was like, I've done that before. And I was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But also, yes, we did it. We made it accurate.